Pokemon is, at the end of the day, a pretty simple game. After all, it is made for children. In a player vs player setting, the mathematical and psychological aspects of the game have near infinite depth, but the mechanics themselves are really nothing crazy. Pokemon have a type, an ability, stats, a move pool, and those moves have a type power, accuracy, and sometimes a secondary effect. Some moves have their own little gimmicks: magnitude, body press, last resort, trump card for example, but even moves that rely on some more complex calculations like Electro Ball really can be boiled down to more speed equals more damage. In all of Pokemon history, there's almost no move that even a child wouldn't be able to understand. In fact, there's only one candidate I can think of, and this move is so cooked that even most adults can't comprehend it. Present. Present isn't a very well-known move, which makes sense considering it's the signature move of Delibird and Iron Bundle, a very bad and very new Pokemon respectively, and it isn't even particularly good on either of them. It's a physical, normal type attack with 90% accuracy that functions essentially like a slot machine. 40% of the time it has 40 base power, 30% of the time it has 80, 10% of the time it has 120, and 20% of the time it heals the target for a quarter of their HP. Suffice to say, it's not really worth clicking ever, but it's also not that hard to understand. There's no extra gimmick to it. It's simply sometimes strong, sometimes weak, and sometimes so weak it actually heals the opponent. So why do I call it the most complex move in Pokemon history? To answer that question, we need to travel back in time, all the way back to Delibird and Present's introduction. Pokemon Gold and Silver. Present is still a physical normal attack with 90% accuracy, but it works a little differently here in the second generation. In fact, it works about as well as you would expect for a Pokemon game which has a 9-minute world record speedrun. That is to say, not at all. Allow me to do a dramatic reading of Present's description on the Smogon move decks. If this move is successful, it deals damage or heals the target. 102 and 256 chance for 40 power, 76 and 256 chance for 80 power, 26 and 256 chance for 120 power, or 52 and 256 chance to heal the target by a quarter of its maximum HP rounded down. If this move deals damage, it uses an abnormal version of the damage formula by substituting certain values. The user's attack stat is replaced with 10 times the effectiveness of this move against the target. The target's defense stat is replaced with the index number of the user's secondary type, and the user's level is replaced with the index number of the target's secondary type. If a Pokemon does not have a secondary type, its primary type is used. The index numbers for each type are Normal 0, Fighting 1, Flying 2, Poison 3, Ground 4, Rock 5, Bug 7, Ghost 8, Steel 9, Fire 20, Water 21, Grass 22, Electric 23, Psychic 24, Ice 25, Dragon 26, and Dark 27. If at any point a division by 0 would happen in the damage formula, it divides by 1 instead. Suffice to say, it's a little bit more complicated than Flamethrower. Now, moves being implemented in strange ways isn't super uncommon in Gens 1 and 2, with some like Wrap permanently immobilizing the target, or Counter storing the damage from normal and fighting type moves to unleash later being quite common strategies in RBY overused especially. But none of them are as frankly bizarre as Present, so like the video and I'll try to explain it in a way that makes more sense. Now, all the probabilities are implemented correctly, just like the table I showed before. 20% of the time, the move simply heals for a quarter of the HP, like normal. But on the other 80% of rolls where damage is dealt, a glitch in the damage formula, the mathematical equation that determines how much damage an attack will do in Pokemon, will occur. This formula has changed over the years, but for reference, this is what it looks like in Pokemon Gold and Silver. It looks like a lot, but really only the stuff in brackets matters, which is the move power, attacking stat, defending stat, combined with double the Pokemon's level divided by 5, and then all of that is divided by 50. Everything else is just esoteric bonuses like crits, same type attack bonus, random damage rolls, weather boosts like Sunny Day for fire types, stuff like that. Now, this is the tricky part. Games use something called database indexing, which is basically organizing stuff and making it easier and faster to pull values from tables into code. Basically like a filing cabinet inside your game. With that metaphor in mind, think of clicking present like throwing a grenade at said filing cabinet and watching it explode. All those neatly organized papers flying around and falling into a big messy pile afterwards. If you look at our damage formula again, present replaces the attack value with 5 or 10 against rock and steel types, which is almost nothing. However, it also replaces the defense value with the index number of the attacker's single or secondary type, and the level with the target's single or secondary type. Because of course it does. This table from Bulbapedia shows those index numbers and their corresponding types. One thing you'll notice is that just because of the way Game Freak organize the types in their code, all the physical types are at the start and the special types are at the end. In practice, what this means is that Pokemon with special typings take a lot more damage from present due to increasing the level multiplier, whereas physical types like normal or fighting take almost nothing. Basically, the move is a massive headache. Luckily, it was fixed in Pokemon Crystal, in every mode except Link battles, to prevent compatibility errors when battling other players. Uh-oh. Well, luckily it's still stuck on Delibird, which is an unusably bad Pokemon, so nobody will ever have to worry about this move in competitive play, right? Well, I lied a little bit. Yes, Delibird is the only Pokemon that learns present naturally, but like many other moves in Pokemon, a Delibird can pass down present to certain other Pokemon via egg moves and breeding. Most of the Pokemon that get present as an egg move are not quite as bad as Delibird, but still pretty terrible. Except for one. The one, the only, pink blob we see in our nightmares, Blissey. Well, and Smeagol too, but mostly Blissey. And Blissey just so happens to be the best possible user for a move like this. Its already terrible attack stat means it doesn't care about the attack modifier being set to 5. And if we take a look at our type index again, Blissey's normal typing gives the target the lowest possible defense modifier of 1, rounded up from 0. This means that Blissey can become extremely dangerous for some common Pokemon in GSCOU, like Raikou, Cloyster, and Vaporeon, for example. Tyranitar in theory should be vulnerable too, since its secondary typing is Dark, but its Rock typing means it resists a normal type present. In practice, this means that the 40 power roll will do about 35% to these Pokemon, the 80 power roll will do about 70%, and if you're lucky to get the 1 in 10 chance for a 120 power roll, a lowly Blissey is likely to one-hit KO some of the strongest Pokemon in the metagame. However, even with all that power, the move doesn't get a lot of usage, and it's mainly for one reason: Snorlax. If you know anything about Gen 2, you know that Snorlax is the king. It's on every team, and unfortunately for Blissey, it's a normal type, meaning present does nothing to it. Combine that with the fact that Snorlax's natural physical power and resilience makes it the default Blissey switch in regardless of present, and it leaves present as an option that only becomes super dangerous when Snorlax is either at extremely low HP or already dead. When Blissey only has 4 move slots to work with, most people will value options that help them get an advantage, rather than options that win more when they already have an advantage. But that's not to say that nobody tries to use it anyway, and even at the absolute highest level of play, you still see it pop up occasionally. But as far as I'm aware, we're yet to see a Blissey get that faded one-shot roll in an official tournament match. I asked a lot of top players if they had ever seen it, and all of them said no, until I asked M-Dragon, one of the best old-gen players of all time with a career spanning decades, and he told me that once, years ago, he remembered seeing a game involving another top player, Conflict, where a Vaporeon got obliterated. But I looked through all Conflict's old games I could find, and I couldn't track it down. Maybe it was lost in a defunct Pokemon Online replay or in expired battle logs somewhere, but I've contacted Conflict about it, and if he knows where I can find a replay, I'll pin a comment with it down below. For now though, we can only hope that one day, in the modern era, we can finally see the strangest, most complex, most broken move in Pokemon history truly shine. Thank you.